For centuries, knowledge has been hidden in plain sight across the sands of time. Whispers of lost civilizations, cryptic symbols, and forbidden histories have been erased or concealed. What if the truth was never lost, but hidden? Welcome to Eye of Ancient Mysteries, where the past speaks and the future listens. Sit back, open your mind, and prepare to uncover the untold secrets of our world. Let the journey begin now. What is orichalcum? Inside the story of the mysterious metal rivered throughout the ancient world, Plato wrote that orichalcum was used to adorn a temple in Atlantis, and that the ancient Romans made coins from this copper and zinc alloy. Yet, this legendary metal seems to have vanished from the earth more than 1,000 years ago. Orichalcum is a metal shrouded in mystery. First mentioned by ancient Greek writers around the 7th century BCE, orichalcum was described as golden and almost otherworldly. The very term comes from the Greek word orichalkos, meaning mountain copper, and it appears in numerous ancient texts. For centuries, historians were unsure whether orichalcum was real, although it was mentioned by famous figures such as Plato and Cicero. The metal appeared to have disappeared from the earth in ancient times. Even if it had once existed, no one knew exactly what kind of metal it was. Then, in 2015, dozens of ingots of orichalcum were discovered in the remains of a 600-year-old shipwreck off the coast of Sicily. Analysis revealed that the metal was an alloy of copper and zinc, very similar to brass. While questions remain about whether the orichalcum mentioned by the Greeks and Romans was the same substance, much of the mystery surrounding it was clarified by this discovery. However, orichalcum is still tied to another mystery, Atlantis. Plato wrote that the metal was mined there and used to build a grand temple on the island nation before it sank to the bottom of the sea. Even today, believers in Atlantis think that orichalcum might be the key to locating the lost city. What was orichalcum, the mysterious metal mentioned by ancient writers? Orichalcum first appears in historical records in the 7th century BCE with the ancient Greek poet Hesiod, and the Homeric hymn to Aphrodite also mentions the metal. The poem reads, "Upon her immortal head they placed a crown that was wondrously made, and in the pierced lobes of her ears they hung flowers of mountain copper and precious gold." The Greek word for orichalcum, orichalkos, literally translates as mountain copper. The metal was described as resembling gold in appearance and was highly valued. In the Aeneid, Virgil wrote that the breastplate of the main antagonist, Turnus, was made with orichalcum. Cicero also noted in De Officiis that the alloy was so similar to gold that people often confused the two materials. In fact, it was said that Julius Caesar once stole 350 kilograms of gold from Rome's Capitoline Hill and replaced it with orichalcum. Despite these references, no one explained exactly what orichalcum was. Its composition was as mysterious as its origin. Then, in 2015, dozens of orichalcum ingots were discovered in a 600-year-old shipwreck off the coast of Sicily. When researchers tested the metal, they found that orichalcum was essentially brass, though likely produced through a different process. It consisted of 75–80% copper, 15 to 20% zinc, and traces of nickel, lead, and iron. The ancient Romans also used a metal they called Orichalcum to mint coins starting in 45 BCE, including the sesterces dupondius and semis. These coins were likewise made of copper and zinc, though it remains unclear whether this was the same alloy mentioned in Greek texts centuries earlier. After all, the ancient Greeks emphasized how otherworldly Orichalcum was, and even linked it to the mythic story of the lost city of Atlantis. How Orichalcum was connected to Atlantis. The story of Atlantis dates back thousands of years. According to legend, the island nation was once home to a highly advanced civilization, but when its people incurred the wrath of the gods, the city was destroyed and sank beneath the ocean. The Greek philosopher Plato wrote about Atlantis in his works Timaeus and Critias, dating to around the 4th century BCE. It is in Critias that Plato describes Orichalcum, stating that it was dug out of the earth in many parts of the island, and was in those days esteemed more precious than anything except gold. Plato also wrote that the temple of Poseidon in Atlantis flashed with the red light of Orichalcum. The entire outer surface of the temple, except for the pinnacles, they covered with silver, and the pinnacles with gold. Inside the temple, the roof was of ivory, adorned everywhere with gold, silver, and Orichalcum, and all the remaining parts, the walls, the columns, and the floor, they covered with Orichalcum. Moreover, the laws of Poseidon were said to have been inscribed by the first kings upon a pillar of Orichalcum within the temple. Of course, whether Atlantis ever existed remains uncertain, but Orichalcum did exist. Whether the metal mentioned by Plato was the same as that later used for Roman coinage, however, remains a mystery to this day.